Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting and thank you for taking the time to participate in this info session today. My name is Vinicius Teixeira, or just Vinny. I am one of the KPU international managers. So our role there is to help international students to join us at KPU, and we try to give them all the support since when they are back to their home country, all the way to picking the best classes with the help of our faculty members and all the support that evolves into an international student coming to study in Canada. So I would like to start off this info session doing a quick roundtable. Here we have Larissa and Lev. So please, if you guys, Lev, if you could start and talk a little bit about you, just a quick introduction, and then we're gonna get more out of your experience at KPU later on.
Totally. Larissa is one of my previous professors, and it's been a pleasure taking one of her courses, actually multiple courses that she professes. And my name is Lev Kerrison. I am a previous KPU student. I graduated with a certificate from NGO and nonprofit studies. I also have a background in business administration. So I have taken, hi Larissa, pleasure to see you. So I have taken quite a few courses in with KPU. I went right from high school in 2003, and I have been taking courses all the way up until 2018. So I have a very long track record with KPU, and I've been to many of the campuses. I've been to the Langley campus, the Surrey campus, the Richmond campus. So I have quite experience with being on different campuses. And yeah, that's a little bit of background of me and KPU. And on the outside of KPU, I'm a business owner, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and I run, I help out and mentor startups and young entrepreneurs as well. So my hands are full, and I'm a new dad. I have a 6-week-old little girl, and thank you. So things are, yeah, things are happening in my life. Let's just say. So I have a vast experience that I can bring to this conversation.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Lev. Again, thank you for taking the time, especially with a new princess at home that I'm sure demands a lot of time. So thank you very much. We really appreciate you being here. Larissa would like to present yourself to our audience.
Hi, everybody. Sorry about those glitches. That was really so strange. My name is Larissa Petrillo, and I'm the coordinator for the NGO Nonprofit Studies program. I'm also the fellow in experiential education and community engagement at Portland Polytechnic University. And additionally, I teach in the anthropology department, teaching cultural anthropology. And I love dynamic classrooms and hands-on learning. So our NGO Nonprofit Studies program is all about that.
All right, that's great. Thank you to you too, Larissa, for taking the time to be with us here tonight. I'm pretty sure that an info session covering what the benefits of students going for NGO and nonprofit certificate at KPU will definitely open the minds of whoever sees this video today and later on, because it's a fascinating field. So thank you for your time tonight. Okay, so I will start a little bit talking a little bit about KPU. I think there are some aspects of KPU that are very unknown to international students. So I'm gonna cover that very quickly before we dive into the actual info session that Larissa and Lev will discuss here. So I'm gonna quickly share my screen here. Hopefully everyone can see that. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so well, just to give a general idea of where we stand here in the British Columbia educational system, KPU is the third largest university in Metro Vancouver. So we have our colleagues at UBC, University of British Columbia, and you have also SFU, the Simon Fraser University, and we are right after in terms of size. So we have over 20,000 students divided in all of our 5 campuses. Out of those 20,000 students, about 6,000 are international students. So we are a very diverse institution. And we are very proud of that. And the idea is to be more and more diverse. And we always have this, our the history of KPU always brought this very close bond with the local communities and obviously the indigenous communities. That's where we borrowed that name from, Kwantlen, the tireless runner. And we have over 200,000 alumni, and today we have the luck to have one of them with us. So we are the only polytechnic university in Canada. Per se. So the good thing about KPU is that besides we are not only we are a university and we have all the infrastructure of a university where it's second to none, I would say, in the entire country. We have like very complete labs and very generous spaces for students to learn from. But the idea of being a polytechnic university means that we are always try to give this hands-on and practical spin to all the programs that we can. So we always try to have this very practical component in the programs that we teach because we are a polytechnic university. And that means that we have, let's say, a reduced classroom size. We have a cap of 35 students per classroom because we believe that the relationship between instructor and student is very important for them to absorb more from their instructors. And whenever it's possible, we try to take them on learning beyond the classroom. And that's, I believe, it's what KPU is about and what this polytechnic part of KPU is about. And obviously we are very proud of that. We are in BC, in the Great Vancouver area, as you can see, a horrible place to live. So yeah, Vancouver is constantly ranked the top 5 cities to live in the world. And obviously we are not in Vancouver per se, but we are in the Great Vancouver area. So the access is seamless whenever we are talking about our campus in Richmond, in Surrey, in Langley. So the quality of life that you can find not only in Canada, but specifically in BC, this very close contact with nature is something that you can rarely find anywhere else in the world. So again, one of the things that we are very proud of and that we try to show to students that are interested in coming to study at KPU. Quickly showing where we are located. So you have downtown Vancouver here, and here are where our 5 campuses are. So we have the campus in Richmond, KPU Richmond. We have the campus Civic Plaza and the original campus Surrey, which are both in Surrey, those two. We have KPU Tech in Cloverdale, and we have KPU Langley. So depending on what program you will study and depending on what course you're going to study, that can change the campus that we are going to go to have those classes. We have a shuttle that go between those campuses. That is one of the services that we have to support our students moving from and in between campuses. So these is where we are located. And again, this is very easy access to Vancouver, into downtown Vancouver. Just to have an idea, if you're going from Surrey, our main campus here, where many of our programs are, to downtown Vancouver, that means between 50 and 55 minutes by public transit, which ends up being very reasonable. If you end up having a car, obviously that times will reduce a little bit, but everything you can enjoy and profit from being in such area for sure. And our spaces are very new and very interesting for international students. So again, we have 5 different campuses. This is our Wilson School of Design that is located in our Richmond campus, obviously focused in our fashion and design programs. But not only that, there's a second part to that campus that we offer different programs. This is the Civic Plaza one. This is our only campus that is inside a building. So it's if I'm not wrong, 5 floors of that building that it is the campus. It's inside, or it is connected to a SkyTrain station. So it's very easy access. It's our newest campus. It was open about 2 years ago. We have, obviously, for those programs that require a little bit more space, we have the campuses in Langley, for example. Just this one is an example, sustainable agricultural farm. So places that we need more space, that students work on land, or even a brew lab that requires also more space. So those are usually programs that require a different kind of setting. And that's why usually those are the programs that are a little bit further away in our Langley or Cloverdale campus. But the idea here is to present to you the sort of infrastructure that KPU has and that KPU make available to all of our students. You always have access to this high-end labs and spaces to work on and from. So I think that's one of the great benefits of studying in a public university like KPU, is that you have access to all this great infrastructure. And yeah, this is our main campus in Surrey too. And this is the one in Cloverdale. So just for you guys to have an idea of the size of KPU and what we can offer. And this is the gathering place in our Surrey campus, very beautiful. This is the place that, as you can see, the indigenous artwork all around. So it's the place that we have reserved for everyone. Obviously, everyone is welcome, but it's also a place for whenever we want to promote the indigenous knowledge that we get from and all this connection that KPU as an institution has with the indigenous people here in BC. Our library in Surrey, and this is the general picture of our campus. Okay, yes, I can see very beautiful, very big, and all of that is in favor of all the students. So before I turn over to Larissa so she can move on into the actual info session about the NGO and nonprofit certificate at KPU, I would just like to explain that at KPU we have 7 different faculties. The academic and career advancement, arts, business, design, health, science, horticulture, and trades and technology. So each one of our programs, over 140 programs, they will fall under one of those 7 faculties. And the one good thing and the one very interesting thing about this certificate, the NGO and nonprofit certificate, is exactly that it kind of is a hybrid between our faculty of arts and our faculty of business. So Larissa will definitely talk more about that. Before I hand on to her to talk about our certificate there, I would like to play a little video to all of you. Let me see here. I think it would, does it have a sound? Probably not. Does it? Yeah, so I don't think it has a sound. So I will just do one quick thing here. Share itself, perfect. Okay, so please enjoy with me this quick video about the nonprofit, the NGO and nonprofit certificate at KPU.
We're having a Think Global Link Local event in association with the United Nations Association of Vancouver, and we are student volunteers from Kwantlen Polytechnic University volunteering today.
It's a breakfast meeting for young people to get engaged and get introduced to various non-governmental organizations in Vancouver who are doing local work but with a global perspective.
We regard it as a networking event. It's an event where young people can meet representatives of organizations which work internationally or work in the field of humanitarian affairs.
2 million people are employed in nonprofits in Canada, and that's 11% of the economically active population.
To work in the not-for-profit sector, you need to have skills in event planning, budgeting, project management, and just generally somebody that people can approach. Having a certificate program that sets students up to know about charity law and to know the realities of working in this industry is really important, and something that I wish I had had the opportunity to take part in.
The Nonprofit Studies program at KPU prepares you to get a job right away. I've learned about how to communicate with organizations, I've learned about social media, and really the importance of promoting your organization.
I define nonprofit as doing a lot with not a lot, really being driven by passion.
When I think about what hope nonprofits bring into the world, I think about how there is so much political dissatisfaction, political marginalization, and nonprofit organizations are really working to bring the hope back into communities that have been lost.
It's a civic duty. I think we all have a responsibility to each other. There are lots and lots of opportunities for us to work as a group of citizens to make changes and contribute to a better, healthier community.
The next generation is a generation that is already much more aware of some of the problems that we face in the world. Overall, I am positive that the next generation will make a very positive difference and that we will end up living in a much better world.
All right, that's a great video. Great video. I want to start studying an NGO and nonprofit certificate right now. Okay.
That's pretty. That's great. So you could see Lev at the very end of that video. He was wearing a suit, but you couldn't see it. He had an amazing bow tie on that day too. I remember. So it's pretty entertaining to see him here in his casual t-shirt.
I was gonna say, did anybody catch that?
Yeah, that's nice. That is nice. So good.
That was a great event. So
yeah,
so
thank you. So with you guys, Dr. Larissa Petrillo, thank you very much.
Thanks. So I have about 20 minutes to go through to just show you what courses to take and explain to you what a nonprofit is and some basics like that. Lev has to leave a little bit earlier than I do. So what I would suggest is as soon as you think of any or all questions, just send them in and Vinny, just interrupt me. Good?
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
So as soon as you think of anything, just dive in there. And Lev as well, if you want to just jump in, because I've just said some inspirational thing that you need to comment on, please do. So I'll just share my screen here and go through, there you go. I think you're all set there. So the program, Vinny mentioned this. So it has courses that are both in the School of Business as well as the Faculty of Arts. We were told by those in the nonprofit sector that we really needed to do this because you really need a lot of business skills in the nonprofit sector. But the Faculty of Arts brings some of the sort of social justice perspective that's also really useful. So it's in both faculties. Just a quick overview, it's 10 courses. So at KPU, course is 3 credits. So 30 credits or 10 courses. Technically, you can complete that in 2 terms. So between September and April, you could do it. You would have to work really hard, but you could do it. A lot of people take the certificate at the same time as their bachelor's degree, the way in which you would take a minor. And so that's a really common way to do it as well. And it's meant for entry-level work in the nonprofit sector, because really the way the nonprofit sector works is you start volunteering there first. So we do a lot of that in our class. And then you kind of work your way up in the nonprofit sector. But getting in there and volunteering right off the bat is really the way to do it. So what is a nonprofit organization? What is philanthropy? What is a charity? So we go into depth in this in the course. But Vinny was so helpful to source these translations in other languages. I've been told by some international students that the word nonprofit sounds like going against profit, and profit is good, so we don't like nonprofit because that sounds bad. So I totally get how that maybe doesn't translate well. So here's some other languages, the way in which you might say charity or philanthropy or nonprofit organization. I'll go into a little bit about the designation of a charity here, but hopefully you're understanding some of these terms here. If you want to type them into the question and answer and give the word that you associate with what I'm talking about, I would love to hear it. It's great to hear cross-cultural examples on this. You certainly do know nonprofit organizations or NGOs. Here's the recognizable panda that everybody's seen. Here's some others. BRAC in Bangladesh is likely the largest NGO in the world. If you've used Wikipedia, you have used something that's connected to a very large foundation, Wikimedia. And then there's some other grassroots organizations and others that you might recognize. So they're really covering all kinds of different areas from small to large all over the world. Here's our program. The courses have been a little reconfigured since Lev took the program. We've created more program choices. And the reason we did that is because a lot of people were taking it with their degree. And so they had 4th year courses that were very applicable. And so we've now built those into the program so that it's even easier to share the certificate across different programs. We've also done a couple of interesting things like put in a sustainable agriculture course. So even if you're in the Faculty of Science, you can find a way to tie in the certificate here. I'll go over these courses a bit more towards the end. The required ones are over there in the core course section, and then the business courses are in the next one. Then you've got perspectives and methods of ethics, choosing 2 from each of those categories. As we heard in the video, the nonprofit sector is huge. So over 2 million Canadians working in this sector, over 170,000 charitable nonprofit organizations. And so this is a really key feature of actually supporting part of Canada's economy, that it contributes a large portion of our GDP as well. The jobs and the size of the sector keep increasing, and that's been happening steadily, basically since World War II. So it just keeps going up. So these were stats from 2017, 2.4 million jobs. And this is the case across the world. That the sector is increasing in most countries across the world. And so you can see some parallel examples in other countries there. And as well, the growth of the sector, the amount of GDP steadily increases year over year. So it's continually growing. The sector is actually larger than the real estate market, larger than manufacturing in Canada, larger than finance and mining. So it's an absolutely massive sector, and it often just goes unnoticed because we don't realize all these people are in the background working very, very hard. The pay in a nonprofit is a little bit less than it would be in your typical corporation. So it's, you can certainly work your way up and be an executive director or a CEO and earning a really competitive salary, but technically they do pay less than a straight corporation. So that's a good thing to know going in. People usually find the work so rewarding that they're okay with it, but that's something to know. So the next thing I wanted to chat about was just splitting down the boundary between the nonprofit and the business world, that we tend to think in these separate spheres. There are businesses and profit and corporate finance versus these little organizations just doing good in the world. And so we tend to think of those in different categories. And in fact, that's increasingly not the case. There is a move towards social finance, a move towards social procurement, and an increasing fluidity between funding nonprofits, businesses, and different kinds of plans around moving money around to do good in the world. So social finance we could see as looking for measurable change in social, cultural, environmental realms, as well as the financial. So it's not kicking the financial out the door, but working in concert. And so increasingly we're seeing that as a value in corporations. Often there'll be a nonprofit arm within a corporation, a foundation under the umbrella of business. Additionally, there's new versions of corporations like a B corporation or a benefit corporation. These are increasing as well in number continually. So those are two categories in the United States. Here you can see some of the brands for the B corporations. I'll just highlight one of those, which was Etsy, which was the first publicly traded B corporation. And here we said share price in 2018 is $19, and now it's at $167. So you can see that these are really part of the financial world as well, that they're not just these fringe organizations that are somehow separated out. As well, you can have social enterprises, which are for-profit companies within a nonprofit entity. So here's some examples of social enterprises within Vancouver. And there's an increasing move towards social procurement, corporations fulfilling procurement orders with organizations that have a social mandate as well. So we're just seeing all kinds of exchanges going on between these different sectors. The nonprofits worldwide, here we're focused in Canada, but you can definitely translate this knowledge around the world. India has the most NGOs worldwide. They're just off the charts, but all around the world, you can find either branch offices of huge NGOs, or you can find little grassroots organizations in all kinds of different countries. Some final stats here before we get into the courses and questions. Here, an indication of the size of the volunteer sector. So really the way in which this work starts is people volunteering, and then an NGO will sort of realize, oh, you're amazing. And then maybe there's a contract position, you get hired in a contract position, and then part-time, full-time. So that's often the way that works. A lot of donation comes from individuals, but a lot of money comes from government as well as corporate donations as well. Very similar stats in the United States as well. So this material is transferable into the United States context as well. So other terms we hear for this are charity, the third sector, civil society organizations. So there's all these different words that mean some of these same concepts. And so we're training you to work in all of those different realms. Increasingly, businesses are also involved in social innovation, trying to really solve some of the larger problems in the world today. This year, we can see that functioning very, very clearly. And so some of these social justice sensibilities are really applicable in the business context also. Technically, the word NGO comes from the United Nations. Here's the increase of the consultative status NGOs with the United Nations. In Canada, we are defined by the Canada Revenue Agency, which is our tax branch, which is not very exciting or sexy at all, but that's the way we're defined in Canada. So much of the material that NGOs have to do to sort of maintain their status goes through the tax agency. Here, there are technical differences between a charity and nonprofit. We spend a couple weeks on this in our first class, but these are the key features. But there's so many different categories for nonprofits, unions, sporting associations, a museum, a library, you name it. These are nonprofit entities, and actually a university and a hospital is a nonprofit entity in Canada too. So, so this covers a lot of organizations. You can be a club, a society, association, and in BC, you incorporate as a society, and there's a set way to do that, and we cover that in our course as well. A lot of people complain about the concern that there is intense politics associated with nonprofits or NGOs. There's advocacy and activism and uprising. And in fact, the Canada Revenue Agency has very strict guidelines about no political activities. We're very limited. I can see Love smiling there. There's a lot of regulations. And so no, it's really not this wild little place of activism. It's just people getting a good job done. So that's our Canadian context for that. There's the website, you saw the link there for the video. And so now I can dive into some of the courses. I'll take a pause there and just see if there are questions that are coming up, or if Lev, you want to jump in and comment on all of that wonderful knowledge there.
You cruised through that quite elaborately and eloquently. I thought that was really great. Thank you, Larissa, as usual. And yeah, I mean, everyone here has heard you speak about the nonprofit sector, the NGO studies, which does give you not only the whole contextual part of it, the informational part of it, but also gives you real life skills that we practice in the classrooms. It makes me think about that event that we just looked at. There was a lot of preparation for that event. And mind you, it went really successful. We invited a lot of nonprofit NGO companies to that event, and they felt like it was very successful for them, so that they got to collaborate with students who are interested in joining their organizations. And like Larissa mentioned, it's, if you're chasing the money, I mean, you can go get a job anywhere. This is more of a purpose, and it gives you fulfillment. Whether you do it full-time, part-time, or even occasionally, it is something that is very, very interesting. And what's interesting about what I've learned through the certificate program itself and everything else that I've learned in KPU is that when I work with nonprofit organizations, and I have a nonprofit organization, I'm noticing that the information and the skills that I gained in this certificate program, even though it's a year-long program, the skills here are very, very transferable. And I actually had an edge over what other people had in owning their own nonprofit companies or non-governmental organization companies or charity companies. They're actually clueless to what needs to be done and how it needs to be done. And having this foundation, I was leaned on a lot, that's for sure, and still am. So it's definitely a very, very useful. It's not just something you take and forget. I've actually gone back to it quite a few times.
Yeah,
that's so great to hear.
Yeah.
Do we have a question there, Vinny?
Yes, yeah, and thank you, Lev, for your comments on that, because I think that's one of the biggest question marks that people have in their head is about if it is to do nonprofit and what is the nonprofit area. And we have a question here from Fabiana. She says, I believe that many people associate nonprofit to volunteer or philanthropy. As you said, can you give us an idea of how financially feasible a career in this field is?
Do you want me to take a stab at that one? Yeah. Sure. So it is very feasible. I'll give you a very specific example, and this is a nonprofit, or actually a charity organization. We've become charitable status almost about a year and a half ago. So what happened was it was a nonprofit registered company that applied for a charitable status, which received its charitable status. And you go through that through the program and you understand what that means. And so we have this organization. We have over 80 volunteers in the organization, and we have 5 paid people there. Now, these 5 paid people are very, very key to this organization. Now, when you develop this kind of skill and talent and work ethic, then yeah, you could be employed by a charity organization, a nonprofit organization. So just because it sounds like it's all volunteer, it's not. I had the opportunity also to be paid through this organization, but I decided not to because I'm invested in the purpose of it, and my entrepreneurial side of this, or in my business side of skills, which I've also taken actually in KPU. And not only did I take that in KPU, but those business courses fell under, like Larissa was explaining earlier, with the certificate. So these courses that I took for business applied as well for the certificate, which I only needed to take certain courses to complete that certificate because I already had those business courses. So it is very, the classes are elemental or foundational to completing the certificate, but they're also transferable to other majors that you want to, if you decide to take degrees in business, or that's what I pursued. So yes, you could be paid good money, just like a regular job that you would be paid out here, for sure.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Lev. And just that example you gave us is so perfect. So imagine those 80 volunteers. Somebody needs to manage those 80 volunteers. That is a paid position, is volunteer management. So that's just one paid position within a nonprofit, is just controlling all those volunteers.
And also another, like these positions are very key. So you have a marketing position, you have a volunteer administrative position, you have a grant writers or grant researchers. That's another paid position. So these are key positions to keep this charity, to keep it going, to keep the fuel running. So the way that I always look at it is, you got to look at no matter what, if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit, you got to look at it as a business. And if you can't continually sustain it, it's not going to be around for very much long.
Yeah. So true. And when we built the program, we consulted with our organizations in the Lower Mainland and asked them, what should we do for the courses? And they point blank said, we need business courses in there. Nonprofits even have to jump through more hoops in terms of answering things around tax revenue. And so it was absolutely essential that people are just very well prepared for what's a challenging sector. So this chart's on our website, and definitely feel free to ask any questions about these courses. But the two main ones where you learn all the stuff about revenue agency and incorporation and all that stuff, or ANT 2190 and ANT 3190, fall term, spring term. You can take the other required course, ANT 1100, at the same time. There's about 15 sections of that running every single term. And then a writing course that's required for most programs at KPU. So those are the required courses. And so the 2190 and 3190 are the real core courses. Here's the business courses. So you can choose one from any box. And you need 2 courses from this category. So you can have entrepreneurial leadership tie-in, you could have public relations tie-in. So there's just so many ways in which you can feed this into other credentials at KPU. For the perspectives courses, there are some courses in the School of Business here, but there's also some in science, in the School of Design, and the Faculty of Arts. So there's a huge range that you can choose from there. Same thing with methods courses, where you can take business negotiations or other courses that might help you in dealing with communication or some kind of advocacy. So here you can kind of see a color-coded version of stuff. So there's so many choices within here. We wanted it to be super flexible because nonprofits cover so many different areas. You want people from different interests to be taking the certificate. Here's the learning outcomes. You can always refer back to these if you like in the video, but here's the set learning outcomes. And so they tie into those different groups where writing stuff, it applies for most university programs, understanding culture, society, and the individual. So that's the NGO courses, business courses. So understanding firm and organization activities. Then the perspectives, knowing something about maybe sustainability or maybe Indigenous issues or maybe regional issues, and methods, looking at quantitative or qualitative or journalistic methods, looking at performing a stakeholder analysis, negotiation, facilitation. So some of those skills that are really applicable to a wide range of activities. Here's the sample course outline for the AMP 3190. And so you can see there's a couple tests in there, but there's also things like the volunteer assignment, the LinkedIn assignment. Our reading package is made up of small little articles taken from a whole bunch of little places, and each year we add new stuff. So here this year we added the statement from the United Nations in there, and a couple of other things. So we're always revamping this. It's quite cheap. I think it's $35 for the photocopies, basically, of all these readings. And so there are things like this was a current one we just added this year on a scandal that happened in a charity in Toronto, which was pretty big news. But this is happening. Things like this are happening worldwide. So looking at those broader issues. And here, another course outline for the other key NGO course. So you can see some of the examples of assignments. So taking minutes at a meeting. That's one of our enjoyable assignments where people attend a committee meeting at KPU and learn how to take the meeting. Same thing here. We added a new reading here on World Vision. So we're always kind of tinkering with this based on feedback from students. Here's an example of a LinkedIn assignment. We had to revamp their LinkedIn. Here's an example of an assignment. People had to compare different places where jobs are listed over a few different days to figure out what was the best way to search it up, because nonprofit is kind of hard to hunt down sometimes. And then they ended up finding, this is a job I'd maybe want to earn my way to. So that was an assignment we worked on. Charity Village in the Lower Mainland is the main nonprofit finding a job website, but there's tons of postings on LinkedIn and Indeed and all of those other really large job search sites as well. Last, here's a volunteer assignment where people came up with a rubric for how they would be evaluated as a volunteer in doing some of their hands-on work. Here is a photo from our video. They were at the registration desk doing a wonderful job. The students for this United Nations Association event created the poster. They did everything. Lev was on the phone, phoning executive directors all over the place. So that was great work. This particular year, those are the organizations who attended. This was our poster last year. We started this quite a few years ago with a really bad website, and it gets better every year. And so here was another year we were running it, and here we really focused on the Sustainable Development Goals. That's us with the members of the United Nations Association of Canada, the Vancouver branch. We did it virtual this year, and it worked well.
Pre-COVID, pre-COVID. Yeah.
No more sitting around breakfast tables together. We do other hands-on projects here. Somebody did a map of all the food disbursement sites in Surrey. Somebody else worked on Surrey Poverty Reduction Coalition initiative. People also took photos and created this virtual app for Kwantlen First Nation one year. We also presented at the City of Surrey one time. So it's really geared around student interest and organizations that reach out to us. Here was us working for a museum one year. So we do a range of hands-on activities, and this was running a survey. So they're great hands-on experiences. Some final words from our alumni. Here's a few updates on our alumni. We saw Denzel at the very beginning of the video ushering somebody into the room. She's with the Cerebral Palsy Association now. Bethany's applying to grad school, as are a couple of other people, but also working in a youth care home. Manjeet, this just happened last month. She has just got a job at Sources, which is a big immigration and refugee nonprofit in the Lower Mainland. And she started that after just 6 months of casual work there. So you can see some of the things that people have ended up doing. So it's a broad range, but people are finding places to do some good work, which is great. On our website, you can see some links to related graduate programs and also links to some of these job search sites like Charity Village. That's a final photo of Sajid working very hard at the event that we put on. So that's it for our slideshow. So I'll turn it over to the questions now. And
I got a couple of things I wanted to add too.
Yeah.
It's real life work, and it gets you ready for the real world. This isn't just sitting in class and then you get out and then you're kind of lost and not knowing what to do. You get to collaborate. You get to, as Larissa mentioned, very hands-on. Some people were building websites, design. I was on the phones. Like, these are skills that are very, very important in the real world. And another thing, I'm an employer, so I employ people. And by being an employer, when I look at people's resumes, having even volunteer hours, I want to look at that and I want to know, like, have they put in time somewhere where they dedicated themselves? Maybe they weren't getting paid for it, but at least they were doing it for a cause. And does that cause matter to me? Some employers will look at that. And if those causes matter to them, well, guess what? You're going to be quite favorable among all the other employees that are applying for that job. So it is very, very important. Another cool thing about this program particularly is that it's very up to date. It's not outdated. There's not things that you're going to learn that are going to be useless for you. These are things that are happening right now, current. And as you see, it keeps getting updated every single year, something new coming out. And I was looking at some of those articles. I know those articles because I've been watching the media, but we haven't covered that in 2018. These are all new things. So yeah, and updating your LinkedIn and knowing how to do that professionally. LinkedIn is your resume. This is what employers are going to look at when they're looking for candidates, especially when you're in the top runnings. I've had one time, I've had over 1,100 resumes submitted for one position in my company. And going through 1,100 resumes, guess what? It's going to be pretty tough, but having some skill around it and knowing what to look for in these resumes, doing the LinkedIn search, yeah, then it gets it really narrowed down for me really quickly. So these skills, hosting events, networking, writing even the minutes was a big one for me. So soft skills and other skills that you're going to learn.
Yeah, that is great. And I think that this point that both of you addressed about how important it is for students to sometimes understand, especially if they are willing to take part in the Canadian culture, that making part of a cause, it's so widespread here. I'm originally from Brazil, and obviously by experience, I can tell a little bit about how things work down there. And I can see the difference in how people perceive or how people are interested in doing volunteering and charity work. And even though, I mean, it would be easy for me to say that down there we need that more than in Canada, the perception of people and interest of people in that sort of work is completely different. So for students that are interested in becoming part of the Canadian society, that's definitely one way in. It's one way for you to get your foot at the door and have people noticing you and acquiring those sort of abilities that will definitely pay off at some point. We do have one question here from Chris. He or she asks, can you talk a bit more about the human rights NGOs and opportunities in that area?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Good comments overall there. I love hearing your experience with Brazil as well, and love your comments as an employer. Amazing.
Yeah.
I can't imagine going through that number of resumes. The human rights organizations are really essential, and they're kind of tied into the beginnings of NGOs, that it's often the first NGOs that ever started, going back 100 years, were because of human rights issues. One can say one of the first social movements was actually the suffrage movement, being able to vote and things like that. So there's this really long history, but definitely there's a huge faction of NGOs associated with human rights. It depends sort of which countries you're interested in and where you want to work. But I like kind of problematizing that with people and brainstorming what's the best angle. certainly we connect with Amnesty International a lot when we do our United Nations event, and they've got an arm here. It's kind of more of a fundraising arm, but they definitely do get out and have some social events and dispersing information as well. But yeah, I'm quite passionate about human rights organizations and happy to answer any questions if you want to email me too.
Great. There's a follow-up question on that, which is there any course of the program that relates to that?
That's a really good question. I could definitely handpick some of the key courses for you.
Nice.
We touch on it a bit in the NGO courses for sure, but the policy studies courses are absolutely essential. And actually policy studies is doing a bit of an information session next week. So if you want to send me an email after this, just NGO studies at kpu.ca, it will come to me. I'd be happy to let them know about more of that too, but the policy studies course would be a perfect fit for that.
Great. There's another question here. If a student, I think it's more for me, it's more about mission. If a student doesn't have an IELTS, is it possible to be admitted to the program? Well, whenever it comes to admission, for you to get admitted into the program, if you come from a non-English speaking country, the minimum required is IELTS 6.5 or any equivalent to that. If you don't have that, we do have pathway programs inside KPU that you can be assessed, see what level of the pathway program you are, and then be admitted to the program if that's the case. Let's see more questions here. One question to Lev. Do you plan to study anything else related to this area, like academically?
I am always interested in studying academically. I started doing a business degree, and then I also put on a NGO and nonprofit studies. Simply after talking to my counselor, and it was fairly new when I went into it. They suggested, hey, this is a new program, most of your courses apply, why not jump into this? And I wanted to travel more into the arts. And if I do go back, I'm thinking about behavioral psychology is going to be kind of my top go-to. It's something that I'm fascinated about, and I have experience in that area especially. So that is something that I would be pursuing when I do go back. When that is, I don't know yet, but definitely it will happen in the future.
That's great. We have another question here. I think you said, but can you confirm if it is possible to finish the program in 2 terms?
Yeah, it definitely is. You do need to do a little bit of planning, and the key feature is ANTH 2190 runs from September to December, and ANTH 3190 runs from January to April. So you would just need to be able to plan around that. I did just get the dates for fall registration, so you have them. The timetable will be published for browsing fall classes on June 25th. That's the same day that people will be notified about their registration date and time. And then scheduled registration will begin on July 12th. So you can start kind of shopping for your courses on June 25th. So yeah, you would need to sign up for ANTH 2190 in the fall and ANTH 3190 in the spring. All the other courses run tons of times and you can put them in anywhere.
Okay, pick and choose it. That's great. That's great. Well, we have another question here. Will jobs only be at entry level in the beginning? There are cases where you see students went from more like a coordinator position or something like that with the use of this program specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And certainly Denzel, for example, she did things like while she was a student, she was a research assistant, worked for the Kwantlen Student Association. So she was busy getting a whole bunch of work experience and volunteer experience during her degree. And so she ended up with the Cerebral Association just a couple months out. So that was really quick. She was just right in there. So that it's certainly possible. I mean, you need to be focused and thinking about building up your CV and your LinkedIn profile for sure, but it is doable.
Yeah, and I can answer to that as well. You, like Larissa said, if you're planning on just taking some courses and applying for a job to get an above entry level job, good luck. There's thousands of people applying, and it's just a run to the race there. And when you put experience under your belt, when you're working your butt off, not just in school, but outside of school, during you're taking your courses, you better believe that that work ethic alone will take you very far. So it's just what are you willing to put into it?
Great. Another question to Dr. Petrillo. How was are classes being delivered online?
Such a great question. So the summer courses right now are online. They're deciding right now about the fall courses. So it's literally this week and next week where they're having big discussions about this. It's not decided by us, it's decided by the BC Ministry. And so we're awaiting word from the government about what all of the universities can do, and we're all acting in concert in the same way. Certainly feel free to send along an email and I can give you the inside scoop on the latest information I'm hearing, but the decision is in process right now.
Great. Another question that we have here from Chris. How many classes / hours per week usually a full-time student go to university? I mean, I think he thinks
I'll give you the root answer, yeah. And then we can hear from Lev. So technically a full course load is 5 courses. And so typically a course is a 2-hour chunk a week. So that's 10 hours of classes. So if you're going as a full-time student, it's 5 courses a term. So that's September to December, and then January to April, another 5 courses. So that's how you would get your 10. So it is doable. Lev, what did you try?
I've never done a full course load just because I also always either worked or owned a company. So I was always busy enough while I was taking the courses. And for me, you also depends where you're situated. So before the internet, like Zoom meetings and COVID, it was traveling to school. So depending on where I lived and how far school was for me, yes, there's different campuses across the greater Vancouver, which helps really, really well. When I live in Vancouver and I have to travel all the way into Surrey, it makes a bit of a drive for me. But if I'm in Vancouver and I need to go into Richmond, it's a really quick drive for me. Mostly I drove, I didn't take public transit to the schools. It does make a difference. Public transit sometimes might take a little longer, sometimes not, depending on where you're situated. So one is to know where you're situated and if you actually need to travel to school. Right now, things are changing rapidly and things are going online, and that helps a lot, and that saves a lot of time. So that's number one. Number two, how much are you willing to put into your course load? If you're wanting to do really well, get a great GPA, which matters, because again, that looks into your work ethic. When I hire people, I ask them, how did you do in school? Because I want to know, did they just slack off and they got 4 grades, or were they actually active and they were really trying? Because when you try, you're going to put in the hours, and when you put in the hours, those 10 hours a week, that's just the start of it. Then it depends on how much more effort are you going to put in to really excel at school, and that matters.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, really great points. The majority of our classes when we're in person are in Surrey. So typically the most of your classes are going to be in Surrey. You can kind of figure out ways to get some of the classes at the other campuses as well. But the main NGO courses are usually in Surrey. That's where the most of the courses are. We'll see how things are in the fall, of course.
Great. Yeah, I'd just like to comment on that, that Lev said. I think it's very important because many times international students, they want to just embrace the whole world, and they want to work full time and study full time. And it is hard, it is different. I think we have to situate, especially international students, that they are not necessarily used to the academic culture in Canada, that it is very demanding. So if you have a full load of courses, it is a lot. So if you're willing to do that plus work, it can be very challenging. So on top of that, if I may ask either to Lev or Dr. Petrillo, how much work outside of the classroom, like how much students should be prepared to work at home, like with the readings, with all of that? How was that for you, Lev, and how should what
from a personal experience, it depended on the course. So if it was something that was complicated, like for me, accounting, it was just something that was, I'm good with numbers, but accounting was a whole other beast for me. So that was something that really, really took a long time for me. But things like philosophy and anthropology came really naturally to me, and I really excelled at that. And for me, spending a lot less time doing that. So anywhere it's very subjective, but it could go anywhere from an hour to 5 hours per course per week, depending on, again, your competency level, how interested are you in it? Because if you're not interested, that's also going to be a big factor in it. But basically, the bigger projects that you do, you break them down. And also, if you're a last minute person, a lot of people study for the exams the very last night, or they complete a project and they cram everything the last day. So that depends too. How do you break down your course load? The projects that you're given. The professors are very, very reasonable. They understand that you're taking other courses. They understand that you have a life outside of school. So they don't overload you. And it's really on you to manage your time.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I'd say for the NGO courses, the readings each week are probably about 2.5 hours of reading. It's usually pretty interesting and enjoyable reading about pretty topical issues. And then there isn't an assignment every week. It's sort of every couple of weeks. And you know, on day one, all the assignments you have to do for the whole term. So whenever you got those gaps to work on, say your LinkedIn assignment, just dive in and work on it. But there's flexibility, you know, if you've had a really rough week, usually there's flexibility there.
Yeah, just talk to your instructor to see what's possible and all of that. Yeah, I think this are the questions that we have so far. Does anyone have any other question in the audience? We have some people watching us live now. Let's see.
I'll just mention we're in the midst of just starting to create our alumni group. So I stay in touch with all of the students and I just enjoy it so much. So it's always great to hear from everybody. And so I had a couple of requests from students. Can we create an alumni group? So we're just starting that this month. So I look forward to that group getting set up. It'll be great.
Yeah, and having an alumni group is a great way for students to network and see how people are doing and what they're doing. So I'm pretty sure that will definitely add even more value to the program, for sure. That's great. I think Lev's going to be part of it. It's just my impression. I don't know. Okay. So yeah, I think we don't have any more questions at this point. So again, for any student that you are interested in having more information, please feel free to reach out to us. We have our general international email, which is international@kpu.ca. We also have the one that goes straight to the program coordinator, which is NGO studies@kpu.ca. And also, if you want to contact directly Professor Petrillo, you can email her at larissa.petrillo@kpu.ca. Okay, so do you guys have any final words? Dr. Petrillo or Lev, do you have any final words to our audience or to the international students that are interested in coming?
Yeah, I had a blast here. I appreciate the conversation. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence, Larissa. And it's a really great pleasure to provide any sort of value, any questions. And again, you have emails here that you can email Larissa or Vinny. And I'm sure if anything gets back to me, I'm also here able to answer any of your questions. So don't be afraid to ask. inquire. This is a great place for you, for everyone that's here live, for everyone that's here listening to the recording. Keep inquiring, keep asking questions. Don't get into something you don't know, because then you might regret it, you might resent it, and then you'll fall out, and then you'll wonder, well, why did I spend money? Why did I waste time? So ask questions. That's critical in everything you do in life.
Yes.
That's such great advice. I agree. And so I would just say one last thing about KPU is that there's small class sizes, so maximum 35 students in a class, and that's from year 1 to year 4 in every program. And we also have no student assistants doing marking or seminars, so it's all with your main faculty instructor. And so I can see a student from the day they start through to the day they graduate, and I can see all of the material they learn over those 4 years. And you end up getting to know the students really well, can write great reference letters, and it's just really gratifying to see that development over a couple of years. So that's why I love teaching at KPU. It's fabulous. For the NGO Nonprofit Studies program, I would say if you learned at least one interesting and useful thing, consider taking the program.
It's great.
I don't know if I want to throw this plug in, but there's also Rate My Professor. A really great site. It really gives you insight in terms of how people are thinking about their professors. Take it with a grain of salt, but look at that, because that might give you kind of insight of somebody who's been with a professor before. So that is one tool that I ended up using later in my courses, and I was very, very happy I did.
Such good advice. Do your research and ask your questions, and then jump on in.
Yes, exactly. All right. Yes, we don't have any last minute questions. So I would like to, again, thank you very much, Lev, for taking the time to participate with us. Congratulations again on the newborn. Thank you very much, Dr. Petrillo. I really appreciate your time too. Thank you. I think that it was very enlightening and very informative to all international students that are interested in that field. I think it's a very a rich field of study and career-wise. So I think we would be more than willing to support and help international students to come to KPU to go for the NGO and nonprofit certificate here with us. So thank you very much. Have a good night, have a good day, or have a good afternoon, wherever you are in the world and whenever you're seeing it. And see you guys around. Thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye.